Welcome to Short Scale Modelling. This is part 13 of Italeri Operation Silver Bayonet. Scale is 1/72. In the previous parts, I started off the building the vehicles such as the helicopter and tank and personnel carrier. I then went on to build the structures for the guard tower, checkpoint, and first aid station. Then finally onto the buildings, the two main buildings. So this part I'm going to be moving on to the figures. And I'll be painting both sets if I have time in this video. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. Now the two figures, two sets, there's 50 each. For the first one, I'm going to be on starting on the Special Forces of the U.S. Figures. So you can see them on the sprue here. I'm just going to start cutting them off. I've already primed them, so I'm just going to cut off a selection first of all. Now, on the first view, they looked to be decently moulded, but after I put them under the magnifying glass, there was quite a lot of seam lines that were going to have to be tidied up on them. And the more I looked at the figures, the less impressed I was on them. The quality isn't brilliant on them. There's going to be a lot of tidying up to do. So I'm going to begin with painting the flesh tones. Now there's a couple of different tones I will be using for the skin area. The two main colours I'm going to be using though, but the first one is Tamiya's XS15 Flat Flesh, and this is for the lighter skin tone. And going on to the darker skin tone, and I'm using Tamiya's XF64 Red Brown. Now this is quite a nice soft brown colour, so it's ideal for the darker skin tone. Now each figure is slightly different, each set. You have ones with short sleeve, long sleeves, and so on. So and I'm going to pay attention which ones I'm going to be painting in up with the flesh colour. So I'm starting at this point to think how I'm going to be placing them in the diorama. I'm not going to be using all the figures. I'm only going to be using a select few though. But here it gives you a snapshot of the poses that I'm going to be using. So it's a nice varied different kind of poses on the actual figures. That's one good thing about the figures. They're not just a static pose. There is various poses from weapon at rest, a person leaning against something or standing in a different manner. For the uniforms, the block colour I'm using is Tamiya's XS71 Cockpit Green. Now, I did initially think about doing it as a darker green, but a lot of photos that I was looking at had various colours and variations of the green colour, but the lighter green seemed to fit best, so that's the one I'm going to be using. But on the alternative paint list at the end of the video, where it says Tamiya XS71, you'll see the other three different variants of the US light green colour. If you don't wish to use the colour choice that I've used, all the other ones are a variation of the light green. For the weapons, I decided to do one block colour of Mr. Hobby's H38 Steel Red Metallic. I decided just to paint them all the one colour, one just for ease, and two, but when they're in the diorama set and they're so small, I don't think all that much detail is going to show. Now this may be a mistake, I'm not sure until I place them in, but with so many figures to paint, I think the block colours will be fine. It's the same with faces. I'm not really painting in the lips, the eyes and things like that, because it'll be very difficult to see them once they're in situ. Now, I realised I'd done a mistake while painting these, as in I didn't remove them from the base. Now, this is something I generally do because I don't like the base being visible in a diorama setting. Now, of course, you can put the ground covering on the base to cover this up, but I find it easier just to remove the base. So I've got a very thin little hobby saw here, and I'm just sawing just below the foot and taking off the bases. It can be quite tricky to do this though, and you will need your hobby knife to clean up any excess areas afterwards. But personally, I think it's worth doing. I mean, there's no hard and fast rule for doing these for this sort of thing. But for me, as I say, I think it's worth the extra effort. So it's back to the painting, and I'm using Revol Acrylic 08 matte black, and this is for the boots. Now every single figure will be getting this colour of the boots. I'm not going to muck around with different colours of black and leather tones. They're all just going to be black. If it was a 135 scale, then I would have done different variations of the colours. But because of this scale, I think it's fine just to leave it in the solid block colours. When I was researching these figures, I noticed that some uniforms are actually camouflage and not the plain green as well. So I'm going to be painting in the camouflage. So I'm using Tamiya's XF68 NATO Brown for this, combined with Umbro 94 Brown Yellow. And I'm using my cocktail stick here, and I'm just making little markings on the legs, mostly, for the camouflage effect. Onto the Vietnamese military figures now. And I've decided just to paint them on the sprue like the US ones. The reason for this was the taking off the bases was easy enough on those figures. So I thought, to save a bit of time, I'll just paint in the block colours now and then touch up as I go along once the bases are off. So I'm using Tamiya's XF13JA green for this. So this is a lot darker green. It dries a bit lighter than you see here. This was done early in the morning, so the lighting's not actually brilliant. A little bit better here, but you can see it is a dark green, but it's not as dark as it looks on the camera. And once more, I'm using Mr. Hobby's H38 steel red metallic for the weapons. Now, some of these weapons should have a wooden stock and things like that. But as I explained on the US figures, I'm just going to be painting in the block colours. A bit laziness on my part, I know, but I think it's going to look all right once they're in place. Especially these ones, because I'm going to be putting these into thick foliage, so you're not going to see that much detail. Well, that's the idea anyway. For the flesh tones, it's Umbro's 94 Brown Yellow. This is the same colour used for the camouflage on the uniforms, but this is again, it's a nice soft colour, and it's pretty good for the Asian looking skin tone, I think. Anyway, it's not too harsh, and it's not too light, and it's not too dark. I think it's quite a good balance. For the webbing on these figures, I decided to go for Revol colour 45 light olive. Now, not necessarily the proper colour in real life, but it's a nice little contrast to the dark green to show a little bit of the detail. Some of these figures have on the mold for the head, have the oriental hat. I don't know what the actual names for them, so it's like a straw hat sort of thing. And for those, I'm using Umbro's 83 or Orchard. Now, again, the colour choice may not necessarily be correct, but it was the closest thing I was able to come up with the paints I have for the colour. So as I say, I'm not sure whether it's meant to be that colour. Some of the pictures I was looking at, it was quite difficult to make out the actual colour. Unlike the US, the feet are Revol Acrylic 08 matte black, and that'll finish off the figures. So it's quite simple block painting on both sets of figures, really. Nothing too testing. They're very small for me, so I was having trouble picking up the detail, even with my magnifying glasses on. So hence why just the block colours. But I'm not very good at figure painting, so I'm fairly happy how they've turned out. There's a lot better figure painters out there than I am. So this is where I'll end part 13. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds? If you subscribe to the channel, please do so. Make sure you hit the notification bell, that way you'll be kept up to date not only for this build, but all my future builds as well, of course. Hit the like button, don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. Thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.